And we go now to our next speaker, and most of you know, of course, Pierrette Pape. She is the policy officer and project coordinator of the European Women's Lobby, and she is going to share with us how she really lobbies the EU countries. For those of you that are from countries that are not part of the EU, primarily I was motivated by that dynamics to call this meeting, because the EU, the European Women's Lobby, is lobbying 28 countries in the EU. But we have in the ECE 28 other countries that are not yet in the EU, or maybe I cannot say that have their own constellation of processes. And it is for them that I think we could learn from the European Women's Lobby some skills and tactics, and what are her tricks to move the governments into her direction. You have the floor, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored by the invitation, and I hope that what I'm going to present will be useful. I just want to start by saying that advocacy for me is always a learning process. So this is a proposal. These are the outcomes of work we've been doing, but if you also have, I'm sure you also have a lot of expertise, and we can exchange and learn from each other. And also to say that we represent 31 organizations, so the 28 European Union member states plus Serbia, Turkey, and Macedonia. So it's a bit more, but clearly we lack time and resources to do more. I'm going to start with this presentation, this page, where I try to summarize in one drawing, one page, what I see advocacy strategy is about. And I would say that advocacy or lobbying, call it the way you want, is about it's about developing the most strategic and impactful action to achieve outcomes. And it's based on the resources and the time that you have. And it includes a smart analysis of the context, the calendar, and the legislative or political processes. So that's why you see in the picture, you have to have clear and concrete objectives. And then you have to identify the best targets who have the power or the influence to the for the objective to be realized. So the targets can be varied. It can be decision makers, but it can also be other NGOs. It can be media. It really depends on your objective and on the role of those targets to reach the objectives. I just give a quick example. We have proposed a written statement for CSW next year. So one first target of this written statement was you, other NGOs, and we got 70 signatures. So one target was to build some sort of feminist group of supporting NGOs. And then the next target for this document is, of course, decision makers, and how we're going to use it, make a lot of noise about it so that the decision makers know about it. So based on on this drawing and this summary, I want to take one example of our work, and I want to take the Beijing Plus 20 report that we've done. So if we look at the picture, the credibility is very important. It's how you base your relationship with the decision makers. So EWL has 25 years of action and activism. So of course, that gives a lot of credibility. Also, we represent 2,000 organizations, so that helps us to be representative, having members from different groups of women, different issues, different topics raised, European members. So it's really important also in terms of representativity. And one strategy that we can use, and that some of you can also use, is what I call the sandwich strategy. So we work at European level, and our members work at national level. So somehow, if we write to the European Union and the member states, and our members at national level do the same, it's a bit of a sandwich. They receive the information from both sides, and they see that they are being watched that they are being controlled. And lastly, the visibility in the social media. This is something we've been building, and this is very important for movement building, to have a support for action, to reach a certain type of people that are using social media. So with the report, we decided to launch it in 2014 and not to wait the 20 years next year, because this is a way for us to set our own agenda. So we decide the issues we want to raise and our demands, we make our voice heard. And based on this document, then we can go and see the decision makers and say, this is what we want you to do. By doing that, you create a democratic space of discussion, and you also create a feeling by the decision makers that they have to be accountable, because you are clearly setting the agenda and telling them that you are watching them. And we also did it before the European Union is going to adopt conclusions on Beijing Plus 20. So hopefully they will also use the conclusions of our report, and all of our members have been sending the report to their national governments, the ones that are negotiating the Council conclusions, and they also have sent it to the governments that are going to meet tomorrow, so that they all have this report with them. Another trick about lobbying is to have a clear message, very concise, precise. So for example, with the report, as you can see, there are only 2 pages per area. We decided to be precise, straight to the point, some facts and figures, why is it an issue, what we want, so that people have the message straight away. And then for next year, we have decided there are 12 critical areas and there are 12 months, like every year. So we will have 1 topic per month, and we will organize something. It doesn't have to be big, it can be also just a social media action. But each month we will work on 1 topic. And this is a way to give visibility to the work, to make sure that it's visible, that it's lively, that it's not a one-shot document and then tomorrow I put it in my my desk and it's dead. And this is something important. Every time you produce something, think about why you produce it and how you're going to use it. If it's just something you produce and nobody reads it, you might wonder if this is really useful. And so every month we're going to also try to work with new people we maybe not work enough with. For example, the month on the environment, we want to approach the environment NGOs. The month working on the media, we want to approach media. On the girl child, working with youth organizations. So that's also something important, so that your work is being mainstreamed in other areas. Now I just want to share the different strategy you can have depending on your objectives. I give you an example. We wanted a commissioner for gender equality, a European Union commissioner for gender equality. And now we have it. So, but before we got it, we did some actions. So one was to have a manifesto for the European elections, where we were asking the members of the parliament to sign. We were asking VIPs to sign. So it gave a lot of visibility. We used a lot the social media, because the goal of this action was about visibility, putting pressure, visibility pressure, to make sure that everybody's concerned about it. And when the first negotiations on the commissioner came out, and there were only 3 women out of 28, I can tell you that we felt that the president of the commission was very ashamed. So we did a hashtag called #NotMyEU, with a photo of only men. And it was really like a lot of people got liked the campaign, retweeted, used it. It was in the media. So this type of action, it's really a communication action, but it brings some type of result. And the result was that we get a commissioner for gender equality. We don't have parity in the commission. Only 9 women out of 28. So if we want parity in the commission, then it's another type of lobbying work. Then you need to work at national level with the national parties before the election. It's a long-term process to change mentalities within the national political groups so that they have real parity in the lists, etc. But this is another type of action. I hope you see what I mean in terms of objectives and action. Similarly, if you want to have specific wording or topics to be included in a document, for example, in the European Parliament, I give you the example of the EU, We don't necessarily, in that case, need to do a lot of visibility communication. What we need is to contact the right parliamentarians that are drafting, maybe the assistants of the parliamentarians. It's even better because I doubt many parliamentarians draft themselves. And you have to have this contact, this personal relationship to establish this trust relation. They need us because they cannot be experts, but we need them to become feminist somehow. So this relation helps them to take on board what we propose. We can send them some tools, amendments, and really have a dialogue with the parliamentarians. So this is how you can get strong language in the documents, and you don't necessarily have to make a Twitter or whatever. An important example or something we learned from last year. Last year, maybe you heard that there was a discussion on sexual and reproductive health and rights in the European Parliament. And we lost the battle because the report was not adopted. And what we learned is that maybe we have worked too much with a certain type of political groups, namely the left wing, and we didn't work with the conservative. So this is also something that is very important, is to really break this separation between political groups. We are NGOs, we have human rights values to convey, so we can talk to everybody and we can find people that would support us in all groups. And this is how we break this kind of separation between left and right. So this is something we take with us for the next battles. And also have different entry points for the issues you want to work on. Maybe on sexual and reproductive health and rights. Maybe next time we can discuss not only about the health issue, but on violence, or maybe it could be on the cost, it could be on environment. Find a way when discussing with people what is close to their hearts, so that you can enter your points through another door. I wanted to share with you some reflection about what advocacy looks like today or the context. My feeling is that we need to have a broader picture as women's organization to be able to engage on global challenges with a feminist perspective. We cannot stick to only gender pay gap or decision making. We have to be able to bring a broad vision of the world we want. So for example, talking about GDP, when we talk about women's economic independence, so not just equal pay, but what about the GDP, what about the economic governance? Addressing new interlocutors like the justice ministers. This might be a new world for us, but those people are making decisions that will impact on women and women's rights. Migration ministers, for example. And this is also a way to break the strategy of the system. The system is trying to make sure that women are just stuck in one place, in one category, and that, migration, economics, this is something different. No, we need to break that and to bring the women's perspective in all categories. I think we also need to engage with non-traditional partners for the women's movement, so trade unions, the other sectors, as I said, culture, environment, development. We need to give visibility to women from minority groups, or women with special needs, like indigenous women, women with disabilities, survivors of violence, because that also shows the base, the strength of the movement. And we need to reinforce movement building and the base of feminism, so using local action, local examples to show the reality. What we're talking about is not abstract human rights, it's the real life of real people. It takes time also to link the local with the international, but that's really important if we want to show that change is possible. What I've seen over the last years is that we tend to do a lot of damage control instead of proposing new things. So there's always this risk of backlash, and there are new things that appear that we were maybe not prepared for, and are very detrimental. So I have the impression for the new issues, as soon as there's an issue that we identify as it might become something big, we need to be proactive and proactively set the tone and say to our decision makers, partners, sorry, what we think about it, to set the agenda with the wording we want to see, not wait for the others to tell us how they analyze the situation, so and not wait for the drama to appear, but bring the issue straight away with an analysis and bring a global perspective also about it. And I think for this region it's important to keep the solidarity global perspective about each issue. And for the old issues, for the again and again sexual rights, LGBT rights issue that come again and again, we need to remind governments of their commitments. So something you can do at any time for CSW, but also at national level, is to have a briefing about the language that exists, that your government committed to UN text. Give them the language, because then they know this is the language, this is what they committed to, and they are accountable to that. And for the European organization, the large network, it's also good to activate your members at different levels, at national level, local level, so that it's everybody gets involved. And examples of tools, it can be, for example, a template letter. This is what we've done with the report. There was a template letter. Our members, they just complete. They can change paragraph, add paragraph, whatever, but at least they have something they can use straight away. Twitter action, when you think Twitter can work. And we have made, for example, a table. Almost all the countries have a Twitter for the delegation in Geneva. They have a Twitter for the delegation in New York. So this is something to be used. And you might even get the Twitter account of the policy advisor of, I don't know which country, in New York. So those people are also using that. And also set small objectives that can be reached. Don't try to change the world at once. But one objective could be, until the end of the year, I will meet the person responsible for CSW in my country, for example. That's a very simple objective, but it's something to be done. So I will finish by saying what maybe for CSW, what's possible to do. I think we can start now. It's all year long, but if we concentrate on getting good outcome for Beijing +20, we should start now to establish contact with at national level, who is going to go, who is responsible for the position of our government. Write also to the Geneva and the New York missions, because they are linking with the national level. Establish regular dialogue, inform them what you do, but also question them. They are partners, but they are not friends, in the sense that we need to criticize. We need to say, okay, you officially in this meeting you said this. Now, when you go to negotiate, you have to keep this language. Otherwise, you are not consistent, and that's not okay. Also, what we're talking about is all about political issues, and the UN is a political entity. It's, we need not to forget that, of course, there are people working in the UN, but it's about member states meeting, deciding, so we have to repoliticize the work of the UN. And so I went on the website on UNECE. There is a president, there is a secretary, executive secretary, and the chairs of UNECE are, for example, Netherlands. The Netherlands is the chair, and Switzerland and Turkmenistan are vice chairs. So they can play a role, and it's up to us to re-dynamize this political interaction. The same with UN Women. UN Women, it's not just the people working in New York. It's about a management board with countries that are sending people, and we need to let them know that we're watching and we're asking them to listen to our voice. Finally, the side events in New York, my advice would be to use them to bring political issue on the agenda with national representatives, governments, and to be careful not to spend too much time to do our own business. If we pay the trip and go to New York, it's to influence governments. It's nice to organize side events, but it would be great to have more time together, to strategize together, to exchange information, and to make sure that the governments see that we are there watching and strategizing close to them. Yeah, so that's it. That's some ideas. final thing. So, so during New York in CSW, there are also some caucus of different big regions. And if you're interested in being in the mailing list of the caucus for Europe, North America, you can come to me or to Beta. And we are working on defining clearly what the objectives of that caucus will be so that we can be very efficient.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pierrette. It is always wonderful to hear you and to clarity and to get your power and also the tricks and the skills you have and to share it with you. This is our gift to all of you, to empower you, and maybe we have to clone Pierrette for all the countries in the world to be the effective lobbyists that we want to be. The time